Hello and welcome to our Eclipse Grand Conjunction 2020 finale video. I've moved downstairs today, so I'm in my office. There's lots of bright lights, but lots of windows means the lighting can be a little bit funny, so I apologize for that. Uh, just wanted to get some more privacy being down here. So today I just wanted to get on and talk a little bit about some of the energies that are coming through here at the end of the year and how I believe they are setting up the entrance not just into 2021, but really a shift in paradigm. You know, we've had this very tumultuous year, and astrologers were talking about 2020. Um, Gosh, I remember when I got into astrology in the early 2000s, it was on everyone's radar because of the huge astrology of the year. We had started the year with that Pluto Saturn conjunction, which I mean, a lot of people literally felt when it clicked into exactitude. And then the whole year we've had like hard squares from Mars and Aries and uh, several eclipses that kind of happened at the solstice points, like directly. And um, it's just been so much. And I don't think that anyone that I follow or listen to really had pandemic on their radar, but they definitely had some really big shifts. And so when you're looking into the like the ending, like where we're landing the plane of 2020, and you know, the horizon now is starting to open and we're going to see what the world looks like going into 2021. There's just this like um, astrology packed right into December that makes up this grand finale, like you would see with um, you know, fireworks show. And this astrology of December, one of these things would be a big month, but having, you know, so many of them packed into just, you know, one month is it's really intense, and it is super exciting. So just starting with the astrology of the eclipse, it's a karmic south node eclipse in Sagittarius at 23 degrees. And we just had one back on November 30th, opposite of that, in the north node in Gemini. Um, and so these eclipse energy kind of reminds me of like the great cosmic mother of the universe, you know, looking over the stew that she's been tending and deciding like this is the moment to kind of stir the karmic pot. And we don't really have a whole lot of control. Whatever happens, the pieces fly up in the air, and where they land is where they land. It's fated. It's not something that we have a whole lot of control over. So I always advise clients or people who are asking that, you know, during an eclipse window, um, really, it's a great time to practice surrender because there is um, so much energy. And the more you try to control the outcome or where all these pieces land, the more um, you can really actually do damage to where you're supposed to be. It's better to just kind of get on for the ride, practice surrendering um, to what comes through. Really, it's a time to lean into your practices. So, you know, meditation, um, breathing, um, just, you know, having a lot of faith, practicing faith muscles that this is something that's actually going to end up being good for you and further your evolution. Um, but they can feel very intense, you know, when the energies are starting. So, this eclipse in Sagittarius on the 14th is also square to Neptune, which is in Pisces. Pisces is Neptune's home sign, so it really it can be in its, you know, highest form, like fostering a real sense of connection to spirit, to the divine, helping to soften rough edges, helping to you know, intensify and allow you to really channel your psychic side. Um, but when Neptune is kind of playing out its shadow side, it can be um, like a distortion of the truth, a you know, because there are no boundaries or hard edges, um, Neptune can tend to really push towards like your idealized self, and you know, like wanting to live in a state of perfection. And um, you know, obviously we can't live in a state of perfection all the time, or even any of the time, really. And that can really cause people to suffer, because you know, when you aren't able to meet your idealized goals or your idea of perfection, where a lot of people are really attached to that, and it can make us feel like failures, you know. um, and us kind of like spiritual sickness can set in when Neptune is activated and kind of playing out its kind of shadow side. And we've seen a lot of that this year in just the proliferation of misinformation, and you know, everybody seemingly tapped into different realities. It's I've had conversations with people this year that I feel like they don't even inhabit the same reality that I do. And how do you have conversations when people aren't sharing reality with you? Um, and so with Neptune squaring the nodes, it's going to be really important as we land the plane of 2020 and move into 2021 that we stay connected to our truth. And we continue to practice strengthening those, you know, intuitive truth muscles. You know, when someone is talking to you and they aren't being um, totally honest, or someone's trying to sell you on an idea that sounds too good to be true, often our gut will alert us that something is not quite right. And so, you know, it's going to be important to keep on our radar and to hold questions of, is this real, is this true, what I'm hearing, is this a true thing? um, and the more that we can stay connected not just to our truth but the truth with a capital T, um, the more beautifully this year will unfold, and it can feel very harmonious, and like we're spiraling up and evolving towards a higher plane. Um, but there will really be a, you know, people could be compelled without a whole lot of convincing to follow a path that isn't true. So this is just definitely something to keep on your radar, and just to keep grounding yourself into the truth. Um, and so weaving that kind of idea of truth through with what's happening with this karmic South Node eclipse in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is, you know, it's not exactly like Neptune, but it's similar in the sense that it's ruled by Jupiter, so it's got a tendency towards expansiveness and reaching for the stars and wanting to know everything and to try everything, to expand our horizons, to take in more knowledge and experiences, to travel, to get a variety of experiences, like someone who has a large palate and likes to try lots of different foods. That's a very Jupiterian type of mm, compulsion. And so the shadow side of that can be somebody who is arrogant or has a lot of hubris, who doesn't have a lot of humility, who doesn't exactly have the ability to self reflect. It's the bigger than life personality. So I'm sure you can kind of see that when Sagittarius and Neptune mm, get into conversation, as they will when the nodes square here at the eclipse, there can be a tendency towards really, letting go of reason, things that you know to be true and real, things that ground you. You may abandon, um, you know, knowing you shouldn't spend too much money on a car, or signing up for a bunch of different classes because you think you have the time, attention, and ability to complete them all. Overextending yourself, to volunteer for some cause because you feel compelled to do something for other people, in the service of humanity. So those are things that can come up or get stirred up during this eclipse. And we may see, like in the larger collective, again, that like idea of going towards our idealized self. When this year broke out, we saw a lot of differing viewpoints with, um, you know, people like with the mask debate, mask or no mask. And the one side of the debate was, you mask to help other people, you mask, to help your neighbors. And that's a lovely idea. It's beautiful. And frankly, maybe I fall closer into that camp of loving my neighbor and utilitarianism and doing what's best for the collective. Um, but other people had different viewpoints, which also were, they were passionate about them, and they were the higher ideals that those people carried as well. I mean, they weren't doing their protests or being vocal about what they believed to be selfish. They legitimately believe in the higher ideals of freedom and the ability for everybody to have the right to choose, and for a government not to be able to tell people what they can and cannot do. Um, but the thing is that when we're all believing that what we're doing is the right thing, and that it's the best thing, and we're reaching towards that ideal, the perfect society that always looks out for people's freedoms, that never intervenes, or the perfect society that always takes care of their neighbors and always is putting other people in front of themselves, it can cause a lot of polarity in society, and where you have multiple storylines, multiple truths pulling people away from their center and into these extremes. And weaving the idea of the eclipse together with this grand conjunction that's coming forward, at this really interesting point where these two major astrological events are happening 7 days apart. And the grand conjunction's happening at 0 degrees Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign, it represents the 11th house. It's the sign of community, society, humanitarianism, future, innovation, ideas, technology, utilizing technology for the good of humanity. It represents the people, not the government, not organizations, but the people. And so at 0 degrees, it's an inception point. It's the very beginning of the sign. It couldn't be more clear that we're stepping into something brand new. Um, and so, like I was saying, when you have this evolutionary step where people are, um, going towards their ideals in several different directions, who wins? Who um, ends up being right? How do you solve that dilemma? And I think that it's just, this is such a really interesting question to hold from an evolutionary standpoint, not evolutionary astrology, just in terms of, where humanity is headed right now. Because, on the one hand, the more you attach yourself to what is right and what is good, um, and the more passionate you become, the more you really do, um, dig your heels in. There isn't the ability to be open to hearing different perspectives or to coming to a compromise, because if what you're doing is really right and from inside you're attached to that rightness, there isn't any room to hear anything else. So we've got these extreme polarities right now, and we're coming into this inception point with our two social planets, Jupiter and Saturn, meeting at 0 degrees Aquarius on the 21st of December, on the winter solstice, the birth of the sun, the day that the sun comes back to life and our days start getting longer. Um, It'll be really interesting to kind of see how, either entrenched we become in these polarities, or how we can weave together a workable compromise for the good of humanity so that we can move forward and, and really birth a more kind of equitable and, bent towards justice society, so that more and more people can flourish. So, the kind of shadow side of this idea of, like, if holding these polarities, if it ended up that one side was able to convince without force, convince the other side to move towards their ideals and join together and take on new beliefs. So now we've got, the polarities have become one, and we're moving forward together. We are on the same page. Well, the danger in that is kind of, coming into this like monoculture, the idea of the singularity or hive mind. When you have everybody on the same page all the time, always working on the same thing, there is no diversity or variety in the culture. And what happens if you add a poison pill into the narrative and beliefs of a monoculture? Well, then there's the ability for things to get toxic very quickly, and there isn't any pushback to kind of help balance the scales. And so, as frustrating as this year has seemed for many of us who really strongly, um, mm, held to our convictions about what was good and what was right, um, the good thing was that we're still operating, um, in a healthy, I know it doesn't seem like it always, but in a healthy society with a variety of viewpoints and the freedom to express those. So as we're moving into 2021, this is going to be something very important to keep on our minds. We need to remember how important, um, diversity of thought is, independent thought, um, really understanding that while, we've worked hard to cultivate our own self beliefs, our own sense of identity and who we are, so have other people. And so the important thing isn't going to be to bring other people on side with us. It's important to respect and honor other people for who they are and where they're personally at. And I think that that's I hugely saw it come up with some of the protests that we saw where um, there was this drive towards wanting to show our support, which is it's hugely important. Justice is never going to be achieved without the majority of voices being involved um, in achieving that justice. But at the same time, um, we have to sit back, learn, take the information that we've learned, and then digest that information ourselves. Take the nourishment from that information into our bodies, assimilate it, integrate it, and then work on it from where we sit. So often people, just start barking into the microphone of social media things that they've heard or support that they want to give, and they haven't fully digested or understood what they need to understand in order to not just be giving the support, but also moving the conversation from social media, from online, um, out into the wider community, and actually getting some real action steps and real life progress in those areas. Um, and so, these are just a few of the things, and I don't want to talk too much about what I see, just kicking off the beginning of the year, things that, on the dashboard of your awareness with all your dials and controls and things that you have to keep tracking every day, that perhaps you add um, the idea of that moving into 2021, where we're in this kind of blank canvas, inception point, that holding questions is so much more important than having a finished vision that you're holding, in your inner, um, dashboard. Because when you hold a question, and you don't need the answer. The answer is always given to you. You come across it because you live the question. The answer arises through you without you having to do the work of finding the answer, of wondering about whether or not this is the right answer. Often when we're on a quest for answers, we'll land on the first one we think might be right without really having the embodied sense of whether or not um, that question was fully lived, birthed, watered up through our being. And like we talked a little bit about Neptune, which is still going to be in play next year, holding the questions and allowing the truth to arise up through you is just going to be really important. So just recapping real quick, going into next year and the energies that we'll be riding, we want to keep questions rather than answers on our dashboard. We want to continue to do practices that help ground us into the truth so that we feel the truth in an embodied way. We want to really be careful of taking on too much. When a mother gives birth to a child, the first 12 weeks at home, we call that the fourth trimester. It's 12 weeks where mom comes home with baby and is just beginning to learn about her new life and learn about this new person. Life slows way down. You're doing so much to it is embodied learning. It is, getting to know a person who can't speak. So it's through, the felt sense that you're feeling into your new life. And for the most part, hopefully, in a healthy situation, moms are given the amount of time that they need to slowly come back to their life. And I think that that's a really beautiful metaphor for where we are. And as the evolutionary wheel turns and the year turns, from 2020 to 2021, and we're going through this kind of winter time, to really go slow. As the pandemic wanes, as it will wane. It will eventually, we will be venturing out of our homes without masks on. This will happen. um, to just take it slow. I don't see life ever being uh, what it was before, but I see it being um, something extraordinary if we take our time, and if we don't get caught in that trap of entrenching ourselves in ideology that we haven't taken the time to fully digest and know if it's something that we really stand for, or that we are a stand for. So thank you for just kind of hearing some additional insights on the grand conjunction and the eclipse here coming up. I There are so many great astrologers that I've had the opportunity to listen to them talk about this eclipse, and so I wanted to add my own little take on it. But there are so many people that you can also listen to them do like full length, hour-long videos on this kind of next evolutionary notch. And so that's all for today. Thanks so much, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.